What's going on, everyone? The Arid Lord is back. Welcome back to another Walking Dead reaction video. This one is for episode 6 on the inside for season 11. You'll probably be seeing this review when it comes out for everyone. I didn't mention this in my episode 5 review, but I did miss a week just from when I recorded it. Just got busy and didn't have a chance to upload it. So that means the videos are kind of just on the normal schedule of when they would upload for the time that everyone's seeing it on cable as opposed to AMC Plus. Although, if you can believe it, there's only 2 more of these reactions I'm doing. I assume it's going to follow the same model where we'll get the second half in the spring, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this is the last season, and I don't really know what to expect in that regard. So we'll see, because with only 24 episodes, it's split into 2 halves. I'm not sure if they're going to follow the typical model or not. But anyway, we can discuss that later. I wanted to review this episode. And again, I think we've got a pretty good streak of episodes going. Really, ever since episode 4, 5, and 6, these past 3. I wasn't a fan of the first 3. But I've really been a fan of the latest 3 episodes. And this one, we finally have Connie back, so we finally get context as to what was going on with her after Virgil found her in the season 10 finale. And I gotta say, if you're a Resident Evil horror fan, you're gonna love this episode. What this episode essentially reminded me of, I don't know, I know I just mentioned Resident Evil, but if you guys have ever played the video game Outlast, this game was literally a TV show episode of Outlast. I don't know, for those who don't know, Outlast is you're a reporter with a camcorder. At least the first Outlast, you go to an insane asylum and you're trying to record everything that's going on there to find evidence of what the hell happened at this asylum. And there's different guys who chase you. It's very horror haunted house vibe-esque, where there's creepy people around every corner, there's jump scares, and all of that happens in this episode in one way or another. Now, the other funny thing is the soundtrack that they have for this, with the really eerie violins, which also is similar to the soundtrack in Outlast when you're running away from many of the villains in the specific areas of the game. So that's what I'll say about that. And the rest of this episode, so essentially Virgil and Connie are running from a group of a horde of walkers. Not a big horde, just a small group. And they stumble upon the haunted house, or just a house that they're using it to kind of hole up in. And it's funny because you almost want to side with Virgil, because Virgil points out that Connie, you haven't slept in 3 days, just rest. And as the viewer, you're yeah, okay. You almost think she's paranoid. I kind of like that double fake out. You almost think Connie's paranoid into thinking is there really someone in the house? Are there really walkers that is it the fact that she's just kind of been on the run ever since last season when her and Magna got trapped in that cave? You really just don't know what's going on in regards to her mental state and kind of where she's at. So you're almost inclined to believe that maybe she's not really in danger. Maybe Virgil has a point. But as we find out, there are some very creepy people in this house. And I'd say this is probably one of the creepiest. It's not really a group. It's just, I guess technically it's like a family or something. And I originally thought there were only one of these fucking things in this house. But it's basically, and as the show describes it in the bonus, it's these feral humans that have just kind of divulged. They're essentially cannibals, much like the termites. But the Terminus people were civilized when they were because they were organized. Like, think about it. Like, they had an entire system with Terminus and the train tracks and the radio messages, and like they had a whole system that required, cognitive thought and a system and process. They had a good arsenal of guns. They were stockpiling stuff. They were trying to add to their ranks if people joined them. Again, granted, they were only in for 4 episodes. It felt longer because of the season 4 finale cliffhanger, but still, they weren't feral. And also, Gareth, if you remember, his biggest flaw was that he just didn't shut the fuck up. He kept trying to reason with Rick. I still remember that scene where he's like, come on, you could have killed us when you came in. There had to be a reason for that. And Rick's like, yeah, we just didn't want to waste the bullets. Gareth was always, he just was a motor mouth and always trying to find an angle. These feral things are just, they don't speak. They just grunt. So they're the complete opposite of Gareth. Even though both of them were cannibals, we can assume there's a scene where Connie's in the basement and she's stepping on all these skeletons and stuff. So we're to assume that they were either eating each other or just eating people that they found. And again, you got to think about, I always remind myself with these scenes, the number of walkers and the people in the house, and think about the time jump. Again, the 6 years. It's crazy. Again, maybe these people in this house were surviving for a long time, and then they just slowly went crazy. There's a cool, on the walls, there's these pictures with the eyes that are kind of carved out. And so the indication is that maybe those were ex-people of that lived there, and now they're just not anymore. So it's in, and again, everything in the way they act was meant to be they were just these wild animals that were almost had rabies or something. It kind of reminded me of, if you guys have seen I Am Legend, those zombie monster things that run on all fours. I mean, they're not as overpowered as those fucking crazy things were, but it kind of had the same vibe, these dark creatures, very little clothing, just kind of, disheveled, long hair. So it was just, it was a departure from the normal Walking Dead. But if you think about it, this is an episode that really kind of struck at the core of what The Walking Dead is. I mean, that is a horror vibe. This is a horror, scary, this is a show that's meant to elicit, scariness, horror. You're supposed to get those vibes from this show, and that's how, from the first episode of the entire show, it was always meant, with the walkers, there was always this eerie creepiness. And I think doing this, I feel it was almost like a checkbox with this episode. You kind of had to do it in order to show, that super creepy vibe. And I'm glad they were able to pull it off and kind of complete Connie's story, because at the end, the group does find her. There is a side plot with this where Kelly is trying to find, once she finds out that Connie's out there, she goes off on her own. She finds a small campsite where she's at, and with Carol, Rosita, and some of the larger group members, at the end of the episode, they do finally find Connie, and they find Virgil. Now, Virgil got stabbed as they're trying to escape, and you see more and more of these feral things. This is towards the end, more and more of these things start coming out. Virgil actually gets stabbed in the back. I fully thought he was gonna die. The scene where he got stabbed, because in the scene right before it, he's trying to tell Connie, Michonne gave me a chance, you go on without me. He was in full sacrifice mode. And quite honestly, I was actually saying it to myself while I was watching the episode. I don't do reaction videos anymore, but if I had been doing reaction videos, I thought that he got bit. Because in the scene where he's talking to Connie, he's sweating, and I'm just, because the fever is part of the infection, so I was he was sweating, and I was like, did he get bit? And he wants to go out in a blaze of glory to save her? And because there's when they first enter the haunted mansion, Connie closes the door from the walkers that are behind them, and there's one walker that gets in, and the walker's kind of wrestling with Virgil until he stabs it. And I'm not I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, did that walker infect him? Did it bite him? And so it didn't turn out. I mean, maybe it did and we didn't see it, but as far as this episode led you to believe, he's fine. I mean, he did get stabbed. He did get stabbed a bunch in the back. So, and then Connie just refused. Again, I like, it shows Connie's dedication. Like, she just refused to leave him. He's dragging him. And then super quick thinking where she goes to that one dead walker that was in the house, and she quickly, like, puts guts on it, and I'm like, oh, I know what she's gonna do. And then she opens the door, and all the walkers that they tried to, that they barricaded themselves from, they let them in, and they just devour. And it's crazy, like, they don't even run. Like, the feral human things, they actually try to attack the walkers and, like, try to eat them. And then it's like, well, one of these cannibals is stronger than the other. That's the funny thing. Like, they're almost like one and the same, except like the walkers have the complete loss of consciousness, because there's some cognitive ability in decision making, some, like, very little that's going on with the feral beings. But and also, I mean, the walkers seem to have, like, they could really bite in, and they've almost got like stronger abilities when they turn into a walker. I don't know if that's intentional, but like sometimes, like, when they rip in, like, their teeth and their hands can very easily kind of like claw into skin. We saw that in the very first episode of the series when Rick falls off the horse and crawls under the tank, and then they just easily devour the horse like it was made of nothing. But it is a weird scene where you're like, oh yeah, like, these things are feral, but, like, at the same time, like, the walkers are the most feral thing that there is. So it was a very weird kind of like clash at the same time. It was a fascinating scene. Like, it's cool that the show, even 11 seasons, reaching the end, could still reinvent itself. And even in the midst of the Commonwealth stuff, I mean, because that's in huge juxtaposition to the formal society. There's a freaking, it looks like from the previews, there's, Eugene and the group are going to go on trial. Like, it's very odd to have that kind of stuff. You see these, people who are just beyond saving, and then you see a civilization that's, high-strung suit and ties. Like, it's just, like, the most polar opposites you could possibly get. And it's just cool that the show has both of those factors going on at the same time. So I really like that. And then, of course, the element that they added with this episode, which I found interesting from Connie's perspective, is they play with the sound. So sometimes you can't hear anything in the episode because you're from Connie's perspective. And so that adds even more of a crazy horror vibe. And it really almost, like I mentioned the game Outlast, it truly makes you think like you're playing a video game, because Connie doesn't speak. I don't know if she can't speak, but she doesn't. There were a couple times in this episode where she, like, could have yelled or said something, like, audibly, even though she couldn't, like, hear it. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure if that's, like, just her inability to, not speak or something. But it was really interesting how they kind of played with sound in that regard. In the sense that, again, like, you're from her perspective, unable to kind of, like, you're going through the maze and you feel like that's what I was saying. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. You very much feel like you're in a video game, because all you can hear is this kind of like high string music, this like horror music, and there's very little kind of interaction that's going on there. So it's quite unique in that sense, just the decision that they made to kind of, like, it's just like a different feeling, because you're usually used to, like, conversations. Like, it kind of just plays with the scene, and I liked it. Like, it was different, but, like, it went to kind of like the vibe of the episode, and the vibe of what the series should really be. So I liked it. It was really cool. So I wanted to mention that in there. I wanted to get all the angles of the Connie stuff, because I felt it was, truly worth mentioning. Again, it was just super brilliant, super creative, the way they did that whole episode. So the other half of this episode, there was one other half, is we go to the Daryl stuff with the Reapers, and it was kind of a hard scene to watch where Daryl cuts off the. Well, there's this, there's a torture scene with one of Maggie's people from Meridian, and we already established in a previous episode that this guy knows Maggie. He recognizes Daryl, and Daryl kind of just tells him to shut up and that he doesn't know him. And it's interesting because Daryl literally cuts this guy's finger off. Like, I almost like Norman Reedus played it so cold. Like, I almost didn't know like what direction Daryl was going. Like, I didn't think that like the main character, at this point Daryl being sort of our main character, was gonna turncoat, but it was just a pretty high extreme for him to go through to do that. Like, it was a very brutal scene. Like they're it was almost like Ozark. If you guys seen that, they were ripping the guy's fingernails off, and just it was just kind of awkward. But yeah, eventually the guy tells the neighborhood that Maggie and the group is at, and it's kind of like it plays with your expectations, because Daryl does warn them, and they go underneath the house, and Daryl's trying to make sure that they don't see them there, and he's getting it. What is his name? Carver, the asshole Reaper who keeps jawing at Daryl, and so the two of them are going back and forth, and you get the sense that Carver likes Leah, and obviously it's almost like a fucking love triangle within this group, in a sense. But there is a tense scene where he finds kind of the hiding spot, but the group already made it out. Maggie's group had already made it out, so. But Daryl does spill some vital information about their numbers. Daryl's a better tracker than, people give credit, with, the signals that he gave, the information he was able to spill. It's good. He's resourceful, thinks on his feet. And then at the end of the episode, I wasn't sure if Pope knew, that Daryl wasn't on their side, because he ends up killing the prisoner, and he kind of has this big smile, he's laughing, he discovered something that made him all giddy. And it's well, what did he discover? Is he just lying? The episode just ends and you don't know, so it's kind of unclear. But the previews for the next one looked cool. Again, like I said, these past couple episodes have been very rewarding to watch, and I was just I'm glad they turned a corner, because the first three, man, I was just not feeling it. And, if I had to see another fucking Maggie Negan scene where they're having the same rehashed conversation for the 7,000th time, I was going to lose my fucking shit. So, glad that, glad we're dealing with some cool elements, like these wild feral humans in this haunted house, and no sound perspective from Connie, and just really cool, inventive stuff. And I'm glad we're getting that in this. Because, again, this is the last hurrah for the show. I know we got a good chunk of episodes, but, we're already, 7, 8, we're already at, the halfway point. We're just about a quarter of the way done with the show. So, again, it's going to be here before you know it. And, again, I seem to mention this in a lot of the vlogs about my disappointment with the Rick Grimes movies, and praying that they sync up with the show's ending, but I don't know, that's looking like a pipe dream. I don't know when the last couple episodes of the season will air, but it's just looking really unlikely for that to happen. I don't know. I hope it does, but yeah, I'm just not sure how likely that's going to be. So again, discussion for another day. I know I haven't really been making vlogs outside of the reviews. I've just been busy, but again, if I have time, I'll try to squeeze it in. Again, I know I'm doing this to less of an audience because, again, I don't keep the vlogs really that consistent, but I still want to follow the show and finish out the channel strong. I'll make a larger vlog about this, but I have said that I'll probably stop activities on the channel once The Walking Dead wraps up. That was really the only thing that was keeping my channel afloat, and so I feel like once the show's done, and maybe once once at least one of the Rick Grimes movies come out, those two things will really kind of cap off the channel, and that'll be it. Seeing as how I don't really record the gameplay stuff anymore, and that's just really part of bygone era at this point. So, all right. Appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I thought it was hella cool. Just something different, you know? Like, you don't go in the episode and you kind of, I think what Angela Kang said it, like the default perspective. Like, I just thought that, Virgil and Connie would be, running through this house or just, but, you get them separated and you get, they play with sound, they play with, who's around every corner. Like, again, if you've played the game Outlast, you will love this episode. You'll almost feel like you're playing the game, but watching the fucking show. So, it would have been really cool. I know the timing really wasn't, I don't know how they decided when this would air, but it would have been really cool, and I think it would have synced up. Like, if they had started this season, like, beginning of October, this would have made for a great Halloween episode. I gotta say, like, if this came out, like, the weekend of Halloween, this would have been, like, the best possible episode to have for Halloween. Like seriously. But, it's kind of like an end of September, early October kind of thing. So, I mean, just 1 month shy of Halloween, but still, like, I think this would have been, like, the best possible Halloween episode. It really is the most, like, horror Halloween episode that the show has done. I'm trying to think of, like, I mean, obviously you have, like, 11 seasons to freaking think about, but, like, what are some of the, like, big horror episodes that, like, the show did? I don't know. Maybe that's a problem that I can't remember a lot of the horror episodes that they did. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the stuff in the prison when there was that sickness, that was a little horror vibe-ish, sort of the... I mean, the early episodes, obviously, like the very first one, some of, like, our introductions to walkers. The season 1 walkers were definitely the scariest. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a problem that I can't name many, like, horror episodes in a show that's meant to be about undead people. So, anyway, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the vlog. Peace.